Hi everyone, and thank you for coming back to my channel and for the handful of my new subscribers. It really means a lot to me, especially because it's a very new channel and it really helps me get motivated to put some content out there, of course. And with that said, it's been a couple of weeks since I've been able to do anything. It has been a very challenging few weeks for my family personally. I feel like 2020 has seeped into my 2021, and I feel like it's probably the same story for a lot of people. The challenges that we were faced in the year before are very similar to the challenges that we face now, if not more so, as we kind of navigate our new normal as well. So I did want to talk a little bit more about the pros and cons about moving to Charlotte, but also what led us here and why we chose Charlotte when we probably could have chosen any other part of the country or gone back to the UK. I will say that Charlotte ended up being quite a happy accident because we thought we were going back to New York City, and it would have been okay, but we had two toddlers at that point, and I really had to wrap my head around how we were both going to be working parents that did not want to commute, that wanted to be home for dinner with our two kids, and we knew that that also wasn't going to be super practical with two people that had really busy careers or would have busy careers in New York City. And also we would want to see our kids when we came home at night and wouldn't be able to enjoy the happy hours, the dinners, and seeing friends regularly. It really does change when you have small kids that really need you. And I thought, well, what's the point of being in New York City when we can't actually enjoy the things we enjoyed before kids? So not to say you can't enjoy them, I just knew that our schedule and the kind of time we had just wouldn't allow for a lot of free time. And once we found out about Charlotte, we thought, well, how do we, not take this chance to come to a city that we actually have no idea about, but it made a lot of sense. There was lots of green space, lots of good schools. It still had this city feel, but not a very large city feel. I guess somebody said it was like Atlanta, 15 years ago. So it really interested us to see, how Charlotte was growing and changing. I know that it's very transitional and lots of New Yorkers come here. So I thought, well, let's give it a shot. If it doesn't work out after the first couple of years, we can move. We are not adverse to moving. We've moved a lot, 2 international moves in the last couple of years, and Charlotte is my 10th city. So I thought, let's try. We've spent the last year, I would say, in a mini lockdown, if you will, and the first 6 months here were normal-ish, I guess, with 2 young kids, but we've really, felt how different, living somewhere could be, transitioning from being new into a city and going out a lot and seeing people and going to birthdays to have that come to a complete halt and figure out how to make our circle of friends smaller, but also still be able to have some kind of sanity and social life as well. I can't even imagine what life would have been like back in New York City with 2 young kids if we had chosen to go back or if we stayed in London. I think we would have gone absolutely crazy. The places are much smaller there, and there is outdoor space in those cities, but obviously you really have to either live near it or make a big effort to go. And where we live now, it feels like a lot less effort. We have green spaces and parks to walk to within 5 minutes, and we were able to build a really big sense of community fairly quickly. And for that, I will always be grateful. The biggest pro for me is the weather. The winters here are not long. They're just a few short weeks. We only have, I would say, just a few more days left really of the winter. Today's obviously, the way I'm dressed, a little bit of a colder day, but just a few more days in the 40s. And then we're, I think, out of the woods. And we're only in mid-February, so it's really not far that we're about to have some spring weather. And I will say that the summers are quite long, so if you're really not into the heat, it's probably not the place for you, but it's a long summer with a lot of mosquitoes, so you definitely have to get your house sprayed outside regularly, especially if you're more prone to bites. Another pro to this city that a lot of people tend to point out is the lower cost of living. And obviously that is defined in so many different ways for everybody, depending on your lifestyle, how many people are in your family, what kind of job you have, how you spend your money. There's a lot of people who have a lot of money that don't spend their money, or people who don't make a lot and spend a lot. So I think that's all really relative, but I find it to be lower cost of living for us because of where we lived previously. I spent a lot of my time prior to Charlotte on the coasts, which was very expensive, and my last couple of cities were London and New York, and that was outrageous. So for us, it feels like a little bit less, but I do not feel like, as a generality, that Charlotte is inexpensive, and especially the neighborhoods that are walkable, because you're paying for that location. And Charlotte does have a lot of walkable neighborhoods, which is also a pro, especially if you're coming from like a bigger city and you're not wanting to spend those prices on really high rents. You could buy a home here for that money, which is still expensive, but at least you have a home and not a little apartment you're paying for. But it is, at a premium. I did want to add that it is not a buyer's market right now. I have read and seen and heard that people are paying well above asking. And I don't know if we're in a bubble, because I am not a real estate expert, nor have I bought and sold a lot of homes. So, but from what I can see is that people in that 400 to 600 range to buy a home, those houses are going so quickly. I don't even think they're on the market for 24 hours. I think somebody already has an offer in before they hit the market. And then I would say the houses above that price, especially in the million mark, they take a minute to go because they're obviously a lot more expensive. So you're not usually having to pay asking for those. But I think that where most of America is concerned, it's been very challenging to buy a house. But I think that's also because so many people are moving here that are cash buyers, that are moving from big cities, who have made money. So it's been challenging for the people who have lived here and tried to save up to buy those homes. One of the biggest cons for me, and this is probably because so many people are moving here from so many different cities, is that the driving here is seriously the worst I have ever seen anywhere. And that's, I think it's a pretty bold statement. I would say it's even worse than New York, worse than London, worse than California. And, and I lived in those places for a lot longer than here, and I have never seen as many people on the road absolutely just following no rules. There is just no rhyme or reason to the driving here. And it's probably because everyone's from somewhere else and they've adopted whatever driving system they had from where they came from. And I rarely ever see people being pulled over. I see a lot of red lights being ran. I do see a lot of accidents. I drive more on the edge of my seat here than I have anywhere. This next one is just as much of a pro as it is a con. And if you're not familiar with the Charlotte area, there's a very strong healthcare industry. There are a lot of hospitals, there are a lot of doctors, and just a lot of buildings that cater to, the administrative staff and other sort of healthcare and well-being facilities. And it is, overwhelming to pick a doctor for yourself or your children, or even just going to a specialist. I mean, there's endless options, which is a really good thing, because if one isn't good, you just go down the street, and that's really nice. But I will say that the belief system in, a vaccination schedule is heavy. And if you're sort of, I don't want to say alternative, but if you, want to do a delayed schedule for your kids, or you're interested in sort of not getting them fully vaccinated or not vaccinated at all, or just doing your own thing, that is really, really frowned upon here. Everyone here is really for the system, for vaccinations. And I don't want to say everyone, but I mean the way that the healthcare industry is designed, obviously, and how doctors are trained, is that's, you encourage the people to also do that, in their lives. So it's so strong that it almost feels like if you're asking questions about, whether even if it's just medicine or the flu shot or this or that, you kind of just get looked at like you're absolutely nuts for not following the rules. And I am someone that, I do follow some rules, but I don't follow all the rules. And I've definitely had some disagreements, specifically with my child's pediatrician. And they bill here the way that they see fit. So even if you don't agree with the coding of the visit, it's really, really, really hard to fight it. They just say whatever they want, they bill you for whatever you want, and obviously that's a much bigger problem in America's healthcare and the rest of the world. But I just have found it really, really challenging to, speak to anybody that's a manager or customer service or billing. It's like no one wants to speak to you. It's like, this is your bill and this is what you pay. And I know that's not true for every scenario, but I've come across a lot of challenges anytime I've wanted to ask questions, and I haven't found the most helpful people here. My favorite and most simple pro of the city is how close the airport is. It takes me exactly 15 minutes to get to the airport from where I live. It is so centralized from so many different parts of Charlotte. I absolutely love it. It's just so nice when you already have to take a long trip or layovers, or you're flying international, that you're not then having to travel an hour to the airport. Another pro and con for me is that it is pretty laid back here. I don't think I expected it to be that way. I knew it was a city that, was not as super populated as some, but it is a much slower pace of life and living than I am used to or expected it to be. A lot of people work very slowly, they speak slowly. They just don't seem to be in a hurry. Obviously, it's not true for every single industry. Some people have, remote jobs and they, have offices elsewhere, but just the day-to-day people that you come across that are working are moving a little bit slow, or I should say a lot slow. Maybe it's the New Yorker in me. I mean, I was born and raised in Chicago, so it's probably just in my blood to do things quickly and efficiently, and I have just not found that here. So I get a little bit frustrated, or I should say a lot frustrated, and have to bite my tongue quite a bit with the pace. Although I can appreciate it in a way. I mean, what's the point of constantly being in a hurry? It's not like I'm going anywhere anyway, I'm just coming back home. So I understand that it is nice, just to take a breath, but usually when you're running an errand or you're doing something, you kind of want to be in and out. There's no such thing as in and out here. Another con for me that is probably not that big of a deal, because I have wanted to stay home and eat a lot even prior to COVID. I only really went to a handful of restaurants regularly, but even the new ones that we explored here, the ones with, raving reviews or that had, a certain fusion, I have not found to be super wonderful. They're not bad, they're just not great. So that's probably because I've lived in big cities and have had some access to some of the best cuisines, I guess. I have just not been wowed here. And even pizza has been a huge challenge in Charlotte. Something, quite simple is really not easy to find. And luckily, we live next to one of the best pizza places in Charlotte, and that's called Anisio. And that is one of the only pizza places that I feel like even deserves a 5-star vote. So would I have, moved to Charlotte if it didn't land on our lap? Probably not, but I am extremely grateful that we ended up here. I don't know how we would have been able to cope given the pandemic with 2 young children if we weren't able to be outside basically daily. It has saved our social life, it has changed our children's development. We are able to be outside, I would say 90% of the year. And that is so important also to mental health. And I think that's why generally the pandemic hasn't felt as awful, if you will, in the city that we're in. And it's just really nice to live somewhere where people take a lot of pride in their homes, they take a lot of pride in their lawns, and I guess it looks a bit picturesque in a lot of the neighborhoods in Charlotte. People take a lot of time to maintain, where they live live, and I really, really appreciate that, and it just makes it a much nicer place to live. You know, life isn't easy for a lot of people in the world right now, and you know, there's day-to-day challenges that everybody's going through, and you know, I'm going through my own, and I have found Charlotte to be a very friendly, supportive, diverse, easy place to live, especially with young kids. And I think it has really saved our sanity that we had ended up here. You know, our home is able to be a little bit larger than it would have been elsewhere. Our day-to-day life feels a little bit more at hand. Everything we do is within, you know, a mile max too. So everything, you know, we've made quite efficient and easy. And, you know, we even walk to get groceries, and we walk to get coffee and smoothies. And, you know, obviously your balance is what's important to you. But I feel like Charlotte offers a lot of different pockets that a lot of people like. And I think that's why, you know, there's a housing shortage right now. I did not intend for this video to be this long, but if you have any questions in regards to any neighborhoods in Charlotte or more specific pros and cons, I'm happy to answer any of those questions, especially as a mom with 2 young kids. There's usually a little bit more specifics around that, so feel free to drop a comment, and I will see you all soon. Bye.